Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bibliobibuli.
Where 2021 is coming to a close.
And Bibliobibuli seems to be opening up at the close.
Okay, that was worth it. The pun was worth it. But we read a lot more than just Harry Potter.
Yes, we did.
And these are the top 3 books that we read in 2021.
My third favorite book that I read this year was called The Book of Eels. It's very shiny, and I'm sorry you can't see there. The Book of Eels. And the author is Patrick Svensson. And it's basically this guy writes about growing up fishing for eels in Scandinavia with his dad. But it's also there are different narratives woven throughout the novel, or well, not the novel, memoir. That's the word I'm looking for. Memoir, where he talks about different scientists' involvement with the exploration of the biology of the eel and why humans are perpetually fascinated by eels and how humanity is trying to find itself in trying to unravel the mystery of the eel.
And warning, scenes in this book may be shocking to some readers. I had to do it.
It's not about electric eels. I'm sorry. Electric eels are not discussed in this book. But there are some scenes that some viewers may find disturbing because there is an entire chapter on trying to discover how to sex eels.
Look, all I want to know is how to cook them.
You can find that out. You can find that out. They do talk about cooking eels, but there's still a lot, even in the 21st century, there's still a lot of mystery about where the eels go to reproduce, how they reproduce, what they look like when they're born, and how they know to migrate, and all kinds of things. It's very interesting. So it's a science book for people who like good nonfiction, but it's also a great memoir autobiography with some underlying deeper theme going on. So yeah, overall it was awesome.
My number 3 is a much more matte finish book and less shiny. It is Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. I almost said the Da Vinci Code. My mainstream brain going there. So everyone thinks they know Leonardo da Vinci, but after reading this book, you realize that, well, you were probably right on a lot of counts, but you'll learn why you were right. Leonardo da Vinci was a lot more complicated than most people think.
So you mean to say he was just not a gay painter, inventor, scientist?
Well, he was all those things,
but he was so much.
He was much more. Yes.
Shocker.
Yes. No more eel. You ruined the eel puns. No shocking puns. No, I thought it was really interesting. You learn why Leonardo da Vinci did a lot of what he did. Like a lot of the things we see as his scientific breakthroughs actually were an accident. And a lot of the things he did with math and sciences were actually just kind of byproducts of his learning to paint and artistry.
Like his cadaver exploration and his dissection was purely for art purposes, but ended up actually producing more information.
Exactly.
And the most anatomically in proportion drawing ever.
That is true too. So yes, Leonardo da Vinci. Whether you know him for his art or science, it's a great book to read.
And Walter Isaacson is known in the biography world for his work. He's a pretty famous biographical writer with a pretty awesome reputation.
Yeah.
So for him to tackle Da Vinci is pretty cool.
The man does his research. This is a very hefty book. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci did have a pretty interesting life, but still, I mean, he fits all the details in here. I mean, there's a lot of illustrations, both of his art, and then he does have a lot of the notebook pages.
Cool.
Pictures of them. It's
Very
very
nice.
interesting to look at his notebook pages.
Yeah,
'Cause of how
between the
he
writing
wrote-
and the
yeah.
sketches and the mirror image writing.
Mirror image, and it's upside down, and yeah.
Personally, I love all the horse drawings.
Oh yeah,
I
the
love
horse
his horse drawings.
There wasn't a huge amount of horse drawings in here, but yeah, his horse drawings were actually for a commission that he did.
The big horse.
The big horse.
I know all about the big horse.
Yeah.
I love the big horse. I just got a thing for his horse drawings. Nobody draws horses like Da Vinci. No one ever has drawn horses like Da Vinci. So my second favorite book of the year, which it's pretty timely. Children of Dune. Why are
Another
all of my
tiny-
Oh no,
There we go.
there. Children of Dune. I had read the original book a few years ago, and then a couple of years after that they announced they were making the movie. And I had always wanted to read more of the books in the series, so this year I read Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, and I definitely liked Children of Dune, I think, better. Not that Dune Messiah wasn't really good, it really was, but I really liked Children of Dune. And you really kind of have to read Dune and Dune Messiah to read the third one. So I wouldn't
really
recommend reading it as a standalone story because it's a continuation of Paul's story. But it's a continuation of Paul's story through his children. His children are like the main characters. And Paul's sister is currently ruling Arrakis. And it's just all about what happens. Because Dune is like such a hot thing right now, and I know you plan on reading it at some point.
I read the first book,
I meant
but
the
I
next two.
haven't dived into the other ones.
So I don't.
And yeah, there's no better time to really start reading them than now. The first
hot.
movie's out. It did pretty well.
Dune is so hot right now.
You gotta work on your Mugatu.
I haven't seen the movie.
And I think there's no better time to jump into Dune, especially if you're one of the people who watched the movie and felt empty inside because you felt that it ended too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dive into it because that was only half of the first book.
Yep.
It gets good after that.
I mean, I thought the first half was good.
I thought it was good, but they really stop before like the real action starts. Like the second thing is going to be a lot better.
It's the only place to stop.
No, I agree. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like if you
haven't
enjoyed it and you were just disappointed at how abruptly it stopped, go read the book.
Yeah, do yourself a favor. Go read the book. Go start the series.
Speaking of enjoying a series and maybe not understanding what's going on as much, The Witcher, The Last Wish.
The Last Witch?
The Last Witch, no, The Last Wish.
Isn't he the Last Witcher?
The introduction. No, he is not.
Oh.
He is not. We will find that out in season 2.
Oh, whoops.
You will learn.
You just spoiled something.
No, because if you watch the trailer, you meet them. You can watch the trailer, you know. So, you didn't watch the trailer? Oh my god. Yeah, so if you didn't know, there's a Netflix series, and a lot of people had issues with it because they couldn't keep track of the storyline, because it kind of jumps around from past to present.
We dealt with that, figuring it out.
We did.
But, I mean, once we were like a couple of episodes in, we realized what they were doing and why they were filming it that way, and then it made sense.
Well, absolutely. But when you read the book, there is actually a vein of storyline that runs through all of them that keeps you grounded in the present, so you can understand a little bit more where you are in the timeline.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why they didn't include that into the show, or at least make it a little bit more obvious about where you are in the timeline, because this clears it up a lot.
I wonder
This-
if there was a decision based on, well, maybe we won't get a second season. I don't know. But wouldn't you think if you didn't think you were going to get a second season, you'd be a little more clear with your timeline?
Maybe. It actually...
I don't know.
It actually...
Or maybe it's because they had to cut certain stories? Or decided to cut some of the stories?
That wouldn't affect it.
Oh,
Because
okay.
this is a collection of short stories. It's not actually the official first installment of The Witcher. This is technically called Introducing The Witcher. So it's a collection of short stories of like The Witcher's past before the story. So
technically it's
you
a
could...
series of short stories in which you first meet the character, but it is not the first novel in the series.
Yes.
This is like a
The
prequel.
full like story starts with number 1. You could really read this book as a standalone, and you don't really need the other books. But this offers some insight into all the characters' pasts.
So,
Like Ciri, for instance, one of our main characters. You can just jump into the first book, which would be Blood of Elves, and you can understand it for the most part. But because they do explain it in that, but it's here and there they explain it, where the book / the show will do a little bit better job of telling the full story.
So for those watchers on the wall here who are still living on the wall and have not seen The Witcher or played the games or read the books, what is a Witcher?
So the Witcher is like a mutant. They take these children and force them to undergo these potions and these trials and tests that morphs them physically, mentally into these basically superhuman monster hunters. And very few actually make it through the trials, which they talk about in later books a little bit more about how grueling and awful it really is to go through all this.
So would Voldemort be able to do it?
Maybe.
I think
Except they don't turn into snake people. They
Yes.
actually develop eyes that make them look a little bit more feline, so they're more cat than snake. This also allows them to use like potions and other things that boost their hearing and stuff like that. So they're super sensitive to all other senses, and they're almost like a medieval superhero, I guess.
a Targaryen Khajiit.
Yeah, more or less.
That was so good I had to say it twice. Come on. That was awesome.
And so that's Geralt, our main character. He's the Witcher. We have Ciri,
I think
Yep.
Voldemort could do it.
who I won't say much on Ciri because she's kind of the mystery character who you learn a lot about. My favorite character in particular, Dandelion.
Yes,
Who,
Gare.
Gare. If you watch the show, his name is actually Gare. And if you've done nothing else, I'm sure you've heard the song "Toss a Coin to Your Witcher." That's
Valley of
the Bard.
Plenty.
It's a great read, and you don't lose anything by trying it and seeing if you enjoy the tales of The Witcher, because it can work very easily as a standalone novel. And number 1, book of 2021. Funny enough, this is actually a book that came out in 2021. And actually, it was so good, I had to post about it on our Instagram. It is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So
You just
I
look
lo-
so happy. Look at this book. Here it is. My favorite. Let me do the Vanna White for the book.
because I almost missed it. I did not know this book was coming out, and then you pointed it out when we were at the store.
You're welcome.
You saw it. Yes, thank you.
What can I say except you're welcome for the book that you loved the most?
And if you've been looking at any like sci-fi literary news or anything like that, a lot of people have been talking about this book because it is like a return to form for Andy Weir. if you're a fan of Andy Weir, you know The Martian was amazing. And then Artemis was just okay. But then he brings this back and goes back to what he loves, which is a man surviving in space. Rylan Grace, our main character, wakes up. God, this is really hard to explain without giving anything away, but I'm going to do my best here. Rylan Grace is an astronaut who wakes up from a coma to a robotic nurse trying to take care of him with no recollection of where he is or why he's there. And soon enough finds that he is on a spaceship in the middle of space. And
As opposed to the far left of space?
what?
As opposed to the far left of space?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
He is in the nowhere space. He does not know where he is in space or time right now.
Okay. Wanted to be clear for everyone listening.
And he slowly figures out. So slowly his memory comes back and he kind of pieces together who he is and what he's doing out here in the middle of space. But Andy Weir goes back to what he does best, which is a man alone somewhere in space and must use science and logic to figure it out. And I know we were talking about this, but I think Andy Weir has the potential of being one of the next great like sci-fi trilogy or epics writers.
If he decides he wants to do that.
Yes, I think he could.
Having never
I really
read any
wish
of
he
his
would.
books, I cannot say.
Because, I mean, Frank Herbert is great. You know, Star Wars is great and all, but there's Star Trek.
Some Star Trek love.
But there's very few sci-fi writers that
Firefly,
ensure that all of their
Farscape,
solutions and the science in it is within, to the best of our knowledge, plausible.
I mean, Star Trek did that in the 60s, but now it's super dated.
Yeah, kind of.
My favorite book of the year.
This is your number one?
This is my number one book of the year.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
This was my favorite book that I've read all year. And ladies and gentlemen, it is The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin.
I really liked it too. If you didn't choose it for your top three, it probably would have been in my top three. It may have knocked out Da Vinci.
I want to just see if I can find, so this book, it's illustrated. So you get lots of illustrations in the book, and it's very much written to be, a children's story.
It is. I think it's more of a young adult, though. There's some heavy themes in it.
Yeah, but I think it's...
If you're thinking, oh, I should get this for my child,
this is about as child-friendly as Martin gets, though, I think.
Yeah, I'm just putting out a disclaimer. Like, if your kid's like 8 to 10, all right. But any younger than that, I don't know.
No. That's what I mean by kids' book.
Yeah.
This is like fourth, fifth grade on up. Read this book. What I loved about this is, first of all, if you've read A Song of Ice and Fire and then you read The Ice Dragon, there are just so many clues in there and little Easter eggs that you can kind of go back through A Song of Ice and Fire and piece together things that Martin's been doing, especially with The Others and Jon Snow's story.
Yeah.
Big time. So basically the story is about this little girl who lives in the north with her father, and she has a brother and a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was born, it was winter time, and her mother died giving birth to her. And during that process, some of the cold got into the little girl.
She was birthed in the coldest winter they had ever had.
Yes.
She was a winter child.
Yes. Yes. And she's got these striking blue eyes. And she loves to go out into the snow and build little ice castles. And there are these little creatures called ice lizards that if anyone else picks them up, they melt, but she can pick them up and hold them in her hands. And one winter, she meets an ice dragon.
And then that's where we have to stop telling you what's going to happen. Otherwise, we're going to ruin the whole story.
Right. So I won't say anything else, but she meets an ice dragon, a real ice dragon.
But yeah,
not a whited dragon like you saw in the show. It's not the same thing. It's an actual ice dragon. And it kind of, the story takes off from there. But I'm just going to say that I cried at the end of the story because it was that moving. I loved it.
It's an emotional story.
It's a very emotional story. And it's whimsical and magical, but there's also real human issues like war and stuff going on at the same time. I just was completely enamored with it from start to finish, and I read it in like an hour, and it was absolutely wonderful, and I loved it.
It is a very quick read, yeah. You'll get it done in an hour.
And it's great. And maybe I will sit down sometime and read it for the channel.
That would be cool.
If you guys would like me to read it for the channel. So that was our top 3 favorite reads of the year. Not including all of the Clash of Kings that we've been reading for the channel. Because you gotta always love A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a perennial. But we did feel we had to mention the book that we will be reading for our book club live streams is called How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino.
And it gets an honorable mention simply because we haven't finished it yet. Technically, it's not a book that we've read in 2021. It's a book we will read in 2021.
And are currently in the middle of reading.
Yes. This is a book that I read half of it within a few hours. It was within a day. And I would have probably finished the book had someone not restrained me because they didn't want me to read ahead because we weren't going to read any further until we discuss it at our book club.
Well, given your track record the last couple of times with the book club, you have a bad habit of talking about things that happen outside of the reading structure of the assignment of the live stream. So Noelle and I will have read the first half of the book like we're supposed to, and then you're going to say, oh, but that part when Kaparu blah, 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 and we're going to go,
but when you have a book this good, you can't help it. You will finish this book in a day if you have no sorts of restraints on you.
Well, we have restraints. I've only read 10 pages, and I'm already addicted to it and really into it. So I cannot wait to get through the rest of the chapters.
I guess I should also point out that it was translated by Neil Gaiman, too. So if you like Neil Gaiman, he's another great reason to check out this book.
And this book is to be the basis for Miyazaki's upcoming film that is supposedly going to be his last film, and which he has described as a film he is making as a gift to his grandchildren. So if you're a Miyazaki fan...
And if you're like me, you'll probably read this picturing it in his art style, and there are plenty scenes about food, so you'll also picture the most delicious anime food you've ever
Studio Ghibli food.
So the main plot of the story is you're following the story of Copper, a 15-year-old boy in pre-war Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So you follow his story, and his uncle is actually writing a journal for him about his experiences and kind of looks on the philosophy of life,
the universe and everything,
spirituality, science. It really touches on everything and just basically covers, what it means to be a good person and live a fulfilling life.
Spoiler, the journal has one page with a single entry, and all it says is 42.
So that's our top 3. I guess top 6 really when you think about it. But well, top 6, top 7. Oh, magical number, 7 books. There we go.
Wormtail, I must have 7.
Look at that. Magical time of year.
Yes, it is.
So why don't you guys leave a comment? Let us know what your favorite book is that you've read this year.
So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you soon.